Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and for today's video we have a lot to talk about as Taiki Shuttle speed is going to be dropping tomorrow, which is just in time to try and rebuild your Umas for Gemini Cup with her, as she is a very strong mile card. But alongside her, we're going to have Sweep Tosho also drop, who has her own uniqueness in her own right that might make you want to pull over her. And because of how much interest there is in Taiki Shuttle, this will be a little bit more in-depth discussion on her and whether or not she's going to be worth it to pull for, as I know a lot of people are viewing her as being a really good pickup because of how strong she is for miles. And so that is going to be kind of the discussion we get into today, and then we'll get into Sweep Tosho. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the card paired along Taiki Shuttle, which is the Oguri Cap Guts card. Now, this card is only going to be relevant to you if you decide to pull over Taiki Shuttle. And that is because if you're going to be pulling for Taiki Shuttle, you really probably should rebuild your Umas on Gemini Cup to at least get your value out of it immediately, because it's going to be a little bit before the next mile. But if you get Oguri Cap and you still can actually MLB her, she is a very strong SR card for your rebuild on Gemini Cup, in that she has power bonus and speed bonus built in, just like we saw with Admire Vega. But she has only 10% race bonus, which is still really good. It's not 15% like Admire Vega, but having that, the 10% with the speed and power pretty much puts her above every other Guts support card, in the fact that it's going to make it much easier to get max speed and power when you have both of those paired together. Has a good friendship bonus. Has a decent special priority, has training effectiveness, a general all-around decent Guts card, but you really do want to get her MLB so you can get that speed bonus unlocked. And that's only going to happen, well, one, you have to pull in Taiki Shuttle in general just to get her, and you're probably not going to get MLB unless you go heavier into Taiki Shuttle, unless you still have SR crystals just chilling that you didn't need to use for Admire Vega. And you can't really rely on her for any of the hints because you're not really able to chase hints in Track Blazer. But she does have Groundwork and Nimble Navigator. You could randomly get it, but don't rely on it for that. But that is Oguri Cap Guts. Very good one for a rebuild if you're doing it, but you're only getting it if you pull for Taiki Shuttle, which then brings into the main reason to discuss here. And that is Taiki Shuttle speed is a very strong speed card. And I know a lot of people are going to be tempted to pull over her, as she is very good for miles, which includes the rebuild of a Gemini Cup. When we take a look at her, statistic-wise, she's crazy good. Has speed bonus, skill point bonus, power bonus, really good. Training effectiveness, 10%. Decent starting friendship gauge. Has another speed bonus built in, so she has 2 speed bonus. Max hint levels, so she prunes herself as you get hints off her, which will give her even more value when we leave Track Blazer, and we do the miles and the other ones where you're actually going to be able to chase hints. Hint frequency, 60%. She only has 5% race bonus, which will really only be relevant for your rebuild in Gemini Cup. After that, you're going to be doing the other mile in Grand Live, and then Grandmasters into the future, depending on how long you value this card, depending on what else you pull for. And so race bonus won't matter there. Now, when it comes to her skills, she has pretty much all the good skills. It's pretty much Taiki Shuttle's kit. Productive Plan, Mile Straightaways, Shifting Gears, Speed Eater. She has Mile Corners. But the big one, and the main reason I think a lot of people are wanting to pull over this card is Mile Maven, which is a very strong gold skill for your front runners and potentially pace chasers. And so it is the gold version of Productive Plan, and it is an early race speed skill to basically help get a larger distance in that early race. If you've been doing any practice races or learned really how, especially this one, Tokyo 1600 works, you really, as a front runner, you really want to establish that first place before you get to the corners, as it is very hard to pass in those corners. And so the early race stuff is very, very strong. And so Mile Maven, and this is also why you see Smart Falcon being very strong, because her ult activates in that straightaway and really helps her establish first place. Now, what does Smart Falcon not have built into her kit? Mile Maven. Guess what this card can do? You can put Mile Maven on your newly rebuilt Smart Falcon. So you pair Mile Maven, you have the Dodging Danger, Prudent Positioning combo. You have all these skills that you throw on Smart Falcon, and she's going to easily get into that first place and carry. And then you also have the one that all of us are building. If you've pulled for her, Mihono Bourbon, very easy to build. But she doesn't have Mild Maven built in. She has Great Escape, but generally the timing on that one, well, not Great Escape, Escaped Artist. So the timing on that one can be in the corners, and if you've been doing any practice runs, you probably see they struggle to pass. If you're not established first very early, it is very, now I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is much harder to get that first place in the corners. And so I would trade this one for something like Escaped. I would actually say this, you could trade this for Kita-san Black. I would take Mile Maven for the mile over Professor of Curvature. Now, you probably have MLB Kita-san Black, so you want to bring her alongside her, but just take note. Very, very strong. Now you can I'm on the JP version, which this card got this buff. This skill does not exist on it for it. That is, I don't even know why it's on the card. When they get it in the future, because I only know of the one track that has no corners, but that was a green. It eventually gets that green added that only works on courses with no corners, so it activates when it's a straight only course. But she is a very, very strong speed card. Now, the problem, and here's one of the problems, and it's something that Cygames you'll see do, like every single scenario, it seems like. Every single one I researched them, there's a lot of speed cards that are like this in the middle of the scenario, and I view them kind of as bait. While she is very, very strong, we have Summer Maru Zensky, and the one that all of us have been telling you to save up for your frontrunners coming up. If you burn your carrots and you're not a whale, like you're not willing to spend money going all in on her, you may miss your opportunity on Summer Maru Zensky, because not only do you have her, but you also have the Light Hello Agnes Tachyon banner, which is like a couple banners after her to pull on, and that's a lot of carrots you're going to want to spend. And here's the thing that Summer Maru Zensky has that makes her super strong, is her gold is Top Runner, which is very similar to Mile Maven. Now, if you pair both of these together on a Mile Maven, and Top Runner, man, you're really popping off. Now, we're not going to have this available for a mile for a little bit, because she's not going to be available for Gemini Cup. But when you look at them, they are very similar, and they're both 30.35 speed increases for 3 seconds. With the main difference being this one is early race only in that instance, while this one can activate in early race, or if it doesn't, you can get it also in the mid race. But I generally see, the version we currently have, Leader's Pride, activating that early race, same timing that you see with Mile Maven. And so when you just compare them together, especially for your frontrunners, this card is overall better, as it's generically good for all tracks. You have, of course, the frontrunner specific Top Runner. You have Groundwork. You have Early Lead. You have Playtime's Over, Slipstream. Like, all these can be used on all distance types, front corners, front straightaways. While Taiki's is all mile stuff. Very, very good. And if you had both of these cards, you can use both of them and just have a monstrous Uma for miles. But Summer Maru Zensky, just in general, is going to be the better pickup. Has still also really good stat stick. Has the power bonus. Has speed bonus. Has better, like I said, we already looked at better hints. Has a little bit of training effectiveness early on. And then as you level up your training facility, which you will, in more scenarios, a lot easier, you get 5. So she has monstrous amounts of training effectiveness that can really pop off, especially as you get later into a run. Decent friendship bonus. And I don't even have her MLB on this one. And decent, really good if you MLB her. Although you only really need Limit Break 1, which is another nice thing about her. Taiki Shuttle, you do kind of want to really go into her more to get all that training effectiveness, which requires MLB. So she requires more investment of pulls too, versus Summer Maru Zensky, which you can get away without having her all the way MLB, because you don't really need Mood Effect as much. You get most of the advantage of her out of Limit Break 1. Has better skills. And so if it became between the two, you're going to pull for her over Taiki. And the same thing with this one. This one, Agnes Tachyon Speed, is more towards your pace chasers, but she's paired with Light Hello, a must-pull banner, in my opinion. Everybody should be pulling on this, because even though you're probably going to want to borrow one of the two, especially if you don't go heavily into the banner, you need at least one of them to be able to borrow the other. So you either try and MLB Agnes Tachyon Speed herself, and then if you don't get lucky on Light Hello, you can borrow her, or the other way around. You get one copy of Light Hello at least, and then you can borrow Agnes Tachyon Speed. So what this does, and just to think about it, you now have 3 speed cards going into Grand Live that are like the main ones. You have Kita-san Black, which has the generic good, she has really good special priority. She has Professor of Curvature, which is a good gold. You have good stat stick on her. So she's kind of that generic one that everybody's going to be utilizing. Then you have Summer Maruzensky for your front runners. Agnes Tachyon as the link match / pace chasers going into future scenarios. And so Taiki Shuttle is basically a 4th speed card. Now, I will say for a future mile one, if I had Taiki Shuttle, I'd probably be willing to replace Kita-san Black with Taiki Shuttle for the mile. Because I find Mile Maven will be a lot stronger than Professor of Curvature. Now, there is a way to get Professor of Curvature as well. We'll have Tokai Teo Wit that gives Professor of Curvature. You could use that alongside a Taiki Shuttle speed, alongside a Maruzensky speed card. But now you're getting into whale territory because you're having to pull a lot for all of these cards. And so while this card is very good, it is not higher value than Summer Maruzensky. And by default, you're going to be pulling on the Agnes Tachyon speed card banner alongside Let Hello, and being a link match for Grand Live, you should be absolutely using this card. If you have to, she also should be the borrow just for how much skill points she gives alongside the stat stick of her being the link match. And then in Grand Masters, we're going to be getting ready for El Condor Pasa speed. And so Taiki Shuttle is an interesting card, but in my opinion, a very easy skip. But very good borrow if you're wanting to rebuild your Umas. So you could borrow her and rebuild your Umas. Get Mile Maven on this for Gemini Cup on your Mihono Bourbon or your Smart Falcon. Like a Smart Falcon that's really like a really good Smart Falcon has the stats, has the skills with Mile Maven and Leader's Pride. Dodging danger, prudent positioning, that Smart Falcon's going to be a monster because she's just going to get herself to the front, activate her ult, and she's just going to be gone. So very, very strong, but I would say only a borrow unless you're like wailing out and you are going to wail out for Summer Maruzensky and still Let Hello. Then you can pull on this, I feel like. But this is the typical banner that you're going to see a lot of in a lot of scenarios, and that is the bait banner right before the other bigger, better banners drop. You got to think it from the JP perspective. They didn't know Summer Maruzensky was coming up. They didn't know Light Hello, Agnes Tachyon, Speed were coming up in the sense that that was going to be a regular thing with the PAL cards. And so they used a card like this that's really, really strong for some reason right after the Mile Champions meeting. I would have dropped this card before it, but drains all their carrots and then gets them to pay when the other ones come up, which is what, if you're a free to play or you're a light spender, you don't want to do. You want to avoid having to go heavily into her and then having to pull out your wallet and go really expensive to pull on both Summer Maruzensky and Agnes Tachyon speed. And we'll see the same thing happen in Grand Live because we have Daitako Helios speed, which is a very good card. We'll have Jungle Pocket speed in Grand Masters, which is a very good speed card. And that we have the one dropping right before Major Romanu, and then you have Jungle Pocket dropping right before El Condor Pasa speed. So we need to use our knowledge of knowing what's coming up to not let this, unless you're whaling, don't let this one get you on your carrots. But we also have paired with her Sweep Tosho. I've talked about her a little bit, as she does have some uniqueness to her. I know she's an Oshi for a lot of people. If she is an Oshi, of course, you're going to want to pull over her. One thing right off the bat I like, she has 20% power bonus. I always love the power bonuses on my Umas. I actually prefer this being like a whip bonus versus speed bonus, because that way, when you have 20% power and 10% speed, you're less likely to bleed one of the stats. And then if it's like on wit, it makes it easier to get that max wit. But overall, really good stat bonuses like that. Aptitudes, of course, she's good for turf, mile, medium. Can do longs, of course. Can even do shorts. I mean, very easy to get both of these to A. She is late and end. One negative about her, I don't like A on late and end in the same in the fact that it makes it harder to use her as a parent, which for me, if I was going to pull for her, she would be more for parenting, or more or less grandparenting, because When you go into her kit here, well, first we'll take a look at the unique versus first. But our unique is if positioned towards the back and racing calmly to the start of the final corner, when there are 300 meters remaining, cast a magic spell to increase velocity continuously. It's a 6-second 0.35 speed increase. Pretty nice speed increase overall there. It's at the 300 meter mark, so you can kind of think of it as like a triumphant pulse to a certain extent. If you meet the conditions. The inherit, not quite as good as it's a 0.15 versus somebody that like triumphant pulse, which is a 0.45, which then inherits down to a 0.25. But okay, I mean, it's your typical skill. You got to hit the conditions. Not terrible, not crazy good, but it's usable. And when you go into her kit, she's got a lot of the stuff you see in her support card in terms of these skills. Trick Rare, After School Stroll for the heal, Take a Chance. Nothing crazy. She does have the built-in heal for long, so she can do longs. So she does have Go Home Specialist, another one that you're probably used to from Gold Ship built into her kit. And then she has straightaway Spurt built in, so she can have that automatically for your longs. But I think the one thing a lot of people like on her, now this is going to be Petrifying Gaze, and it's an end closer specific speed decrease. And so I think a lot of people, knowing how strong Dominator was, are really looking at this one as, oh man, a Dominator that I can use on any track. While that is true, this is not as strong as Dominator. Dominator activated everything in front of you. This one is all enemies within the field of view. So as an end closer, she's going to be farther to the back. This isn't going to be impacting your front runners, which are generally what the Dominators were really good for in the one with Christmas Oguri Cap. The Dominators would slow down the front runners heavily, and then Christmas Oguri Cap, which had a consistent ult, could then just run on by them and win easily. This one is not going to slow them down in that capacity. And so, to me, not as good. It's usable, but by no means a very strong skill. Now, when we get down here into the rest of her kit here, she does have Slipstream built in, so decently okay. I mean, we haven't had easy access to Slipstream, so for parenting, you can get that in your builds. It's kind of one of the reasons I pulled for Ines Fujin, was she had Slipstream and Playtimes over built in, has end closer corner, so decent little skills there. But there's the big thing, and to me, the main reason, if you're especially big into parents like I am, and you want to be that person that gets heavy borrows from people, she's the one that's going to be able to give you that opportunity to do that. Now, you're going to have to do a lot of parent runs to pull it off, but she has our first instance of Restraint, which is a green, so this is usable to activate things like Groundwork from your front runners. And this is a wit stat up 60. But it also has decrease rushed chance, -3. So this is very good for helping trigger those skills where you cannot be rushed. So Cheerleader Halo, the Major Dober ult, where for her acceleration in 5th and 6th place, decreases your rush chance. Very, very good for that. But as you can kind of see here on all the things that'll have it coming up, we're not going to see our very first instance of it until the Sweep Tosho Wit card, which I think will be coming towards the New Year's event, I believe. But after that, it's not until like Major Odober Speed and a couple other ones here. So it's not going to be very easy to get access to it very quickly. And also, the Sweep Tosho Speed or Wit card that'll be coming out with it here in the future, which is the closest one to right now, where everybody can have access to it if they get her. It's a gamble. You have to take the top option on her first event, and you either get it or you don't. And so, yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt to grind into parents and grandparents right now. Sweep Tosho, the only way to guarantee it. And so, that's, to me, the biggest value she has. In terms, unless she's your Oshi, I think she's an okay Uma. She's not like crazy good. To me, she doesn't have crazy good golds built in to really elevate her to a strong level, like some others that I would prefer over her that are coming out in the future for end closers. But she's not bad by any means, and you get the bonus of being able to try and build this in. And like I say, if you can get this built into her as a parent, and then you can get another Uma to have it on the spark. Like if you can get a parent that has restraint on all 3 levels, especially if you have at least 2-star on all 3 levels, you will be able to get a lot of borrows from people. Especially if I find it, because I will be looking for them, because I do not plan to pulver her. So if you build that parent that has this on all 3 levels, I will be looking out for it to try and get it built into my own parent chains, potentially. So just know that you might be able to get your friends list and get a lot of borrows that way, which then can in turn help you get friend points off of support card borrows. But that is Sweep Tosho. I feel like she is a pretty easy skip, other than that being the reason. Just let somebody else do all the work and getting it built into their parents, and then borrow their parents down the line once it becomes a little bit more relevant. Because if nobody has any borrows available for it from her, then nobody's going to have it available anyway. So it's not going to be that big of a problem at all. But yeah, that's pretty much it. A little bit longer video, as I feel like both these Umas kind of have their own relevancies coming out. I feel like if you're a whale, I think Taiki Shuttle good is a good pickup for like your heavy spenders. Like if you're willing to pull for Throne, then Taiki Shuttle speed you're willing to pull for sure. But that's going to be pretty much it for now. And if you like my content, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.